Oh, well, hey there. What's up, peeps? How y'all doing today? Well, it's been a long week for me, as far as being stuck at home for like 7 days with at least 6 days with the weather. Snowed a little bit and then it iced over, and it's finally melting off, but they called today off for work too. I got up and I got all ready to go, and then they were like, it's totally called off. And I was kind of relieved, but at the same time, wanting to get out there and do my thing, keep myself busy, keep my brain occupied, make money, that kind of thing. I got to make a living, right? But instead, I'm stuck here at home doing philosophy in my brain. And, it's funny. I often take the time that I have to think about life and waste it away on some stupid show on Netflix or something. I actually don't have Netflix anymore, but I always have some streaming service or YouTube where I can sit there and distract myself from life. And I think we're all guilty of it, but a lot of us really do pretend that it's not as bad as it is. The fact that so many of us are really immersed in technology one way or another, we justify it by saying, oh, I'm reading or I'm gaining knowledge. That's all great too. But I think deep down inside, we all feel a little bit of guilt for the fact that most of us anyway, even though we still interact with family and friends, we find ourselves being pulled away to games, to videos, to social media, forbid. It's the one thing I really don't do is just, text social media. Things like, even with video, I guess, but Twitter and Facebook kind of thing. I think of how much time I spent mindlessly posting things that didn't matter in the past. It's been a long time. I had Twitter for a very short period of time, but I had Facebook years ago like everybody else did, and my account's probably still there, but I think I deleted it. Just because it wasn't because, I'm trying to hide from anything. It's like a few years back, probably like 4 or 5 years ago now, I was just like, all right, I waste time on Facebook and have absolutely nothing to show for it. No gain, no value. All right, it's done. What the conversations were not being enhanced, discussions were not being really handled properly as far as the way I like to talk to people. It just was not conducive. It's the wrong environment for having real discussions. And how foolish was I, way back when, to not realize that that's pretty much the entirety of the internet and social media in general. People shitpost. People respond to negative things but ignore the positive. People are much more likely to respond to negative news. This is well known. It's negativity bias, and that's why the media carries negative stories. It's kind of all of our fault, but none of our fault, if that makes sense. I'm not here pointing the finger at the media. It's kind of like pointing the finger at the drug dealer rather than the problem, the source. And with drugs, we know the source is not just where they're grown or manufactured, but people's desire for them. And that is the source for media as well. It's not that people need the knowledge and the news they're getting, it's that they believe that they need it, but really just know that they want it. They want to be able to wake up in the morning, watch a 30-minute newscast, and think that they're informed for the day about everything that's going on in the world. And when you've got Sinclair Broadcasting and all these different companies, a few companies owning all of the media, large and small, it's very difficult to oh, you got an itch there, girl? When you have all these companies that run the same newscasts, and I'm sure everybody's seen now the clip of every media company, like 100 different ones saying the same exact clip about being trusted news and professional journalism. It's like this cacophony of bullshit that's constantly coming out of the media that's convincing people that they need to know these things that are happening around the world and even in their own neighborhood. And look, I'm almost 50. I grew up in a time when media was somewhat decent, but starting to go to shit during the OJ trial during that time in the mid 90s. and they went to 24-hour news, it all fell apart. But there was some respectable journalism, and there are still respectable journalists. It's just from the top down, the information is very obscured, and anything that doesn't agree with, basically, media companies have to make their money somewhere. They make it off of advertisers. If the advertisers have bad reputations and somebody tries to call it out, well, they'll just get fired instead, because they're not going to allow people to talk about shit about their advertisers, in the news, which is a conflict of interest, of course. But we also have, of course, public broadcasting and OPB, which can be a decent source, but also tends to be very biased in its own way. So what am I getting at here? Well, this is an off-the-cuff discussion, so of course I'm just going to have to manufacture my thoughts in a way that seems coherent. First off, religion, politics, the things that we divide ourselves over, and this is the main point I wanted to make here. The things that the media, and I mean the media as a whole, in print, in video, even down to every alternative, newscaster, everyone, they want to paint a picture of things a certain way. And if it's not exciting, then nobody's going to be interested in it. And there is a long list of things that we have been divided over for so long in many different realms. I prefer to accept everyone as, a good human until they prove me wrong. That might bite me in the ass sometimes, but the things that we might look down on another for having a different religion, a different political view, we also look differently at each other for having wealth. Just like a wealthy person might look down on a poor person, the poor person might have the same effect by looking at a rich person and hating them just for having money. This does work both ways. And there's also, of course, race, which I don't want to go into the whole racist issue because it's very nuanced and complex as well. And there are many different angles to it, to why people believe certain things about themselves and other cultures and other races, whether there are any actual physical differences between races, whether we can have normal conversations and make jokes about each other and stereotype one another. Because we live in a world right now where everything's so sensitive, certain topics just won't be discussed in certain ways, except for in comedy. And that's a video that I believe I made the other day, but if I haven't uploaded it, I might never do it. I probably forgot about it, about how important comedy really is, to the future, our survival, if you will. So we've got religion, politics, wealth, classism, race. We've got also gender, of course, women who hate men, men who hate women, or anybody else in between who, has an issue with a different group because of who they are. It's kind of a silly thing to argue about, but that's also very nuanced and hard to discuss right now. So, but here's where it gets kind of funny. This is universal in the sense that we fight over dumb shit. Music, for example, what band is better than another band? Or I like this band and these guys are deep and oh, those guys are shallow. Hey, I listen to Tool. You listen to Nickelback? That kind of thing. And this kind of superiority people have over others because of the type of music that they listen to or don't listen to. This can be even a joke about, I was going to make the title of this, that, a dog and cat person, that dog people are smarter. You make this claim, and it could be Android or Apple, right? Android phone users are smarter than Apple phone users. And then what do? You point to a study that was done. Right there, don't slip. You point to a study, right? And the study is quoted in the article. So you go to the study, it takes you to a web page and some random news site that has a quoted study that was done. Then you start to ask yourself, was this study done with bias in mind? Are you looking at a study that was done hoping to achieve certain results and has confirmation bias included? Can you trust that the study was repeatable or done? So many studies, well over half and up to like 80% in some journals, of these studies have never been repeated. So people have these studies to say, oh, what do people think about this? And how many people feel this way? Then they go to a place of their choosing and they choose the people that they want. They figure out the study that they want to keep and they dismiss the rest. I mean, this is well known in the pharmaceutical industry when they'll dismiss all the research trials until they finally find one that they like. And it's just creepy how people are so easily fooled by other people's bullshit. And meanwhile, folks keep us divided instead of looking at the big problems, divided over things like, like I said, politics. They are important, right? We have to know what's going on. We have to make sure that the people that we vote for, if that matters at all anymore, care about our viewpoint. And of course that's an issue. Religion is very important to people. There are some people who think everybody's trying to wipe out religion and others who think that religion's trying to take over. And meanwhile, most people just have their own opinions. Maybe less people are religious, but more people are spiritual. It doesn't really matter. People just want to hang on to something they can believe in and something that gets them through this crazy thing called life. And so my point here to make it is that all these things like religion, politics, wealth is a problem, but you can't hate a person because of their wealth. Race, gender, even music, Android, Apple, dog, cat, lover. These things don't matter when you are face to face with the person. It's very rare that a person says, oh, well, my neighbor has this political view, so I even though I've enjoyed talking to him for years on end and we have great conversations, I'm ditching him because of his political views. It happens. I have a friend who his buddy stopped hanging out and interacting because they had a falling out over their political views. And there are plenty of religious folks whose families won't let them date or hang out with somebody who's not the same religion. That's wrong, and it's a problem. But honestly, I think it's the minority of the things that are going on out there, that most people are starting to open up and accept what changes in ourselves and society. So what I'm getting at is that I think that our society is improving, that we are progressing. I want to call it the progressive side of things, that we're doing a lot better and that we've really opened ourselves up, at least in the West, to a lot of changes. And as this coincided with the internet and the Industrial Revolution, we've put ourselves in a situation where we have more information than we can handle and are still trying to figure out how to process it. The workload has been thrown on our desk, and we still have yet to go through it and organize it. So I think we'll be okay. I really do. I think that people, society, will manage. It'll probably fall apart. There will probably be a major disaster and a huge decline in society. But if we're not looking at the future and looking at what we could really do for each other and with each other, the amazing history of human progress, and the fact that we're living in a short period, a window where we could do so much, then we wouldn't be fighting over whether a person uses a certain kind of computer or, even though that's kind of a joke, nobody's going to fist fight over Apple and Android, right? But the fact that we have, it was a show that Oprah Winfrey did. It was probably 20 years ago. I remember my wife telling me about it. She said, yeah, apparently there was this episode where the whole subject matter was that people who put toilet paper rolls on where the paper's coming down the front rather than from behind are smarter, and that they did a study and found out that people who put toilet paper roll on a certain way are smarter. And apparently, I don't recall ever watching it, but apparently they went on with this for several, I don't know how many minutes or how long, but interviewing people who said, yeah, I've noticed that too, and I always knew that I was smarter, and they put up all these bunk studies and people believed it. In the end, of course, the whole thing was made up, and it was really an example of confirmation bias and how people want to believe that, nobody in the audience who put toilet paper roll the other way, there's nobody out there who's going to admit that they're stupid. Even though it was fake, even if it was true, they wouldn't admit it because people don't want to believe that they're wrong about things, but also people don't want to admit that they're less intelligent about things. And of course, it being a bunk study, it was what it was. But these things happen all the time. There are all kinds of bullshit studies out there. And often when you really look at the details of, you know, who owns what and who funds what, you realize that most of them don't matter. And what I'm trying to point out here is about, if you're trying to prove to other people your point, you want to prove that you're right, and you know what's going to happen, or you know more about this topic or this subject, it doesn't fucking matter. 90% of the time, it's useless and pointless knowledge for all of us. I've spent so many countless hours reading and learning about useless shit that I'll never even remember. And it's probably filtered away somewhere in the back of my mind, but I'm realistic. You know, I know as humans, we just go from this to that, and we waste a lot of time looking at things that don't matter. But it does build our worldview a little more each time. So when we look at both sides of everything, all those topics I listed, you know, religion, politics, wealth, explore these things. You know, be willing to accept people who have completely different viewpoints from your own. If you're a dog person, hang out with cat people, right? Hang out with an Android user, you Apple users, that kind of shit. It's a matter of us just letting go of everything from the biggest to the smallest disagreements that we have, and really getting to know each other, you know, looking eye to eye and understanding each other, like looking each other directly in the eye and saying, I see you, you know, you're another human. And not letting that mask of daily life get in our way. And that's hard. I understand. It's hard for me too. Once in a while I wake back up and go, God, I forgot. I'm in a crazy, crazy world here. That life is amazing, you know, and it's worth sharing with people. And it's worth interacting in a peaceful manner, in a respectful manner, and giving everybody the chance, regardless of who they are, as long as they're not a jerk. We do have limits, and that comes down to some values and morals and basic standards, which I won't cover here because those are unique to each tribe and group, depending on who they think is the enemy and whatnot. But I guess generally my theme on that is make no enemies. I don't have any. My only enemies, or people who I would consider my foes, would be those who harm others, physically harm others as individuals. And that's another topic altogether too. I would say round up all the people like that and put them on an island, but they already tried that, and it was owned by some rich guy, I think. Anyway, I'll see you next time, and once this ice melts off, I'm going to be able to get back out in the world, and I won't be so stir crazy. Peace out. I'm going to go back to my life as a dog/cat person who's left and right wing, who believes every and no religion, who's not rich. I guess just a white guy from Washington. Peace out, my friends. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.